Hi friends, it is Jenna, what is up, and welcome back to the Board Game Garden, and welcome to a Kickstarter preview for this game right here. This is Kartini From Darkness to Light. This is designed by Sherria Ayuandini, I believe is how you pronounce it. And it's published by Ion Game Design, who is helping sponsor today's video, so a huge thank you to them. Thank you for supporting the Board Game Garden and allowing me to feature your game here on the channel. Kartini From Darkness to Light, the theme of this game I feel like is super important. So when I got the email to possibly cover this game on my channel, it was an absolute yes. Basically, in Kartini From Darkness to Light, you are creating schools in Indonesia to allow young women to get educated, become fighters, politicians, patrons, even teachers, to help with the nation's eventual liberation and also the freedom of Indonesia. Make an impact in Indonesia in the late 1800s to early 1900s, during the country's struggle for independence from Dutch colonialism. As a player in Kartini From Darkness to Light, you run schools that were key to the nation's eventual liberation. You act upon women's rights and desire to go to school. The education of young Indonesian women made them take important roles, lead battles, raise capital, and participate in politics on the road to free Indonesia. So that is the little spiel and little story behind Kartini From Darkness to Light. That is everything for the intro. If you guys want to see how Kartini From Darkness to Light plays, then just keep on watching. I will also have the link to the Kickstarter down below. When I am filming this, there is a week left on the campaign, so go check it out. I believe it ends on June 26th or 27th. I will have all the information down below in the description, but definitely go check it out. There might be a few days left here on the campaign, so if this is something that you think that you would enjoy, then go check it out. Again, thank you so much to Ion Game Design for sponsoring today's video, and without further ado, give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoy. Hit that subscribe button if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. Comment down below if Kartini From Darkness to Light is a game that you think you would enjoy. And let's get into this video, shall we? So the aim of the game in Kartini From Darkness to Light is you are trying to educate students, graduate students to be things like fighters, politicians, patrons, as well as teachers. And after 3 rounds of doing this, whoever has the most victory points at the end of the game is the winner. And each round consists of 3 different phases. The main phase is the action phase, where players will be doing a bunch of different actions in order to gain teachers, gain students, gain books, do different things in order to graduate as many students as possible, and then the different things that students are graduating for will get you victory points in different ways. You will then move on to a milestone phase where you will have a different milestone each round that you will score for, so it'll just be depending on which milestones are out. And then lastly, you go into a cleanup phase. So you'll do that all 3 times, the action phase, milestone phase, and cleanup phase. And then at the end of the 3rd round, the game will end and the player, like I said, with the most victory points will win. But quickly before we get into the different phases and how the game plays, I do want to quickly go over all of the components here, which I will say right off the bat, all of this is prototype. I did get an online version of the rulebook, and looking at that, it already looks like they have started to improve upon some of these components here, and they are looking great. So everything that you guys see here is prototype version and is subject to change after the campaign ends. So we have here the full game of Kartini From Darkness to Light. You have the main board in the center here with all the different islands of Indonesia. You have all of the different pupils and the battle tokens as well. You have a turn order track here, which we'll get into. We have the From Darkness to Light track, some event cards, the milestone cards. This section here is for whenever you graduate patrons. You will be placing in a graduate here. You also have the Balai Pustaka, I believe is how you pronounce it. And this is actually like the national printing press of Indonesia. So you have all of the books here that you're going to be using for graduating students as well. Some of the students or all of the students are going to require certain books in order for you to graduate them. So that is that. We also have the individual player boards and different things that each player is going to get at the beginning of the game. You have the player board here, which is one of the things that I saw is most improved upon in the rulebook. But the individual player boards, you're going to have your 3 classrooms. These classrooms are going to be 3 different aspirations. each of the students is going to have a different aspiration or two different aspirations, and you are going to be placing those students and teachers into those specific classrooms. So you have the politicians, you have the fighters, and you have the patrons, but you have your 3 classrooms. You also have your schoolyard, where you're going to be placing the pupils from the different islands and placing them into your schoolyard. Again, you're going to need pupils in order to graduate students. You have your library here, whereas you're going to be putting your books into. Then you also have spots here for 3 different bonus tokens. So whenever you graduate a politician, you're going to be getting a different bonus token that's going to get you some end game scoring for the end of the game. So that is that. And then on the side here, we have 2 different tracks. You have your reputation track, which you're going to be gaining reputation as you graduate more students. And also, you're going to need specific numbers of reputation in order to do specific things or graduate specific students in specific spots. So some places will require more reputation in order to graduate a student there, so on and so forth. And then the other track here is the endowment track, which is basically how much duit, which I believe duit is the currency in Indonesia. So the endowment track is going to be how many duits you're going to get at the end of each round. So the higher your endowment, the more duits you're going to make. So that is everything for the personal player board. There's also going to be some of these, which is a nice player reference. You have all of the different icons on the front, the different phases, and then you also have specifically how to graduate each of the types of students. So that is everything for the player reference. Each player is also going to start with a Kartini letter, which this is going to show you the starting resources, which I just realized I didn't give each of these players their starting books and duits, but it's going to show you your starting reputation, your starting endowment, your starting books, and your starting duits. And then it's also going to have a end game kind of objective that you have, a personal objective that if you achieve it, you'll get 6 victory points for. I believe all of them are 6 victory points, but I could be wrong. And then you also have all of your schools here, your graduation caps, which you will need to graduate students, and you also have some additional pupils for those specific islands. So I will mention that you are going to get a player color. This doesn't necessarily mean that you were tied to that island. It is just a player color, and it kind of just represents where you are starting and branching off from. So that is the player colors, and I believe that is everything for the personal player boards. The main player board, in front there, I will have B-roll of it. There are some temporary teachers down there, and also hero students, which are going to be special students that you can educate and graduate, and they will give you some sort of special ability. They're a little bit more difficult to graduate, but they will give you some good stuff. And also the pupil that they need is going to be wild. So when you graduate a student, it's going to need a specific color from the board. And sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to get certain colors. So the hero students actually allow you to just use any color meeple. So if you have one there that you don't have use for, you can use it on a hero student. And then lastly, speaking of students, we have all of the different student tracks on the side. So there are 6 different tracks or layouts of cards, student cards. Also, apologies for my creaky stool. And each of these tracks here are connected to one of the 6 islands on the main map. So I believe that is everything for the components. We also have some donate tokens here, which I will explain in a second. But yes, without further ado, let's get into the action phase to start off this overview. All right, so there are multiple actions that a player can choose on their turn during the action phase. Players are going to be going in turn order, starting with the first player, and they will do one action, and it'll go to the next player. That will continue until all players have passed. So the pass action I am going to talk first about because it's good to know when you start off the game. But basically, once you have decided you don't want to take any more actions or you can't afford to take any more actions, so on and so forth, you are going to choose to pass. So once you've decided to pass, you're going to take your principal meeple, which is placed here on the turn order track, and you are going to be picking one of the rewards on the track. So the further to the right you're going, your rewards are going to get better. So you're going to have a bunch of different rewards here. You get 1 book, 1 endowment, 1 do-it, 2 do-its, 2 books, 1 book, 1 do-it, 1 endowment, 2 books, and 1 do-it. So wherever you place your principal, you're going to gather those rewards. And once everyone has passed, whatever order you are in there is the turn order for the next round. So I do really like when games have this type of turn order mechanism where you can either choose to try to change the turn order, or you get rewards based off of that, and then that determines your turn order for the next round. So the better the rewards that you want, the later in the round you're going to go for the next round. So once everyone has gotten their rewards and passed, you're going to have that new turn order. I did also mention these a little bit earlier, but these are donation tokens, and when you decide to pass, you actually take one of these and put it in front of you with the green side up here. I believe in the final product they're going to be a different color. When this is in front of you and other players are continuing to play their turns and you have already passed, whenever it would get back to your turn, you will flip this donation token over, and then once it gets back to you for a second turn, you would flip it over again and you would gain 1 do-it from the supply. So the longer the other players are playing this round, the more do-its that you could possibly obtain. So every other turn that it would come back to you, you would gain a do-it for that. But it gives you a little bit of something for, unfortunately, having to pass earlier than others. So that is the pass action. Moving on to the second action, this is one of the more simple actions, but this is hiring a teacher. So when you are wanting to graduate a student, you are going to need a teacher in a classroom. So like I said, there are some temporary teachers here. So on your turn, you could decide to hire a teacher, and you would pay either 1 do-it or 1 endowment in order to hire one of the 3 temporary teachers there. And each of those 3 teachers is going to have a different aspiration. So politician, fighter, or patron. And I might say I want to hire a patron teacher. So I'm going to place this one into the patron classroom, and I will pay either an endowment. Let's say I pay an endowment. And then that teacher will be in that classroom for the rest of the round. So once the round has been completed, all of the hired teachers will be put back into the supply, and you're going to have to hire more teachers on the next round, which I will mention, you can get permanent teachers by graduating students into teachers, so then you will always have a teacher there and you won't have to continue to hire those temporary teachers. And that is everything for the hire a teacher action. The next action is called recruit a pupil, which is everything to do with this map here in the center. So a player may choose to recruit pupils from a region that they already have a school. So for example, this player has a school here. Unfortunately, there are no pupils there, but pupils will be replenished at the end of every round, so more pupils will be added every single round. Also, some pupils will be placed or moved from island to island, so there is going to be some added to different regions. Once you have a school there, you can also get schools, which I will get to in a second, and add schools to different regions on different islands. But yes, where you have a school, you are able to recruit pupils from that region and place them into your schoolyard that is on your personal player board. And then alternatively, a player may decide to pay 1 do-it to another player that has a school on the same island as them, and then they would be able to recruit pupils from any other island or any other region that has that player's school. So that's a great way to get pupils from places where you might not necessarily have a school. And that is everything for recruit a pupil or pupils action. So the next action is registering a student. So this is registering a student and then placing it onto your personal board, and you are taking a card, a student card, from one of the 6 different lines of cards representing each of the different islands, and you have to have a pupil in that color in your schoolyard in order to take a card from that row. So this one here, I only have 2 yellow pupils, so I would only be able to register a yellow student from Java. So for example, I could take this student card right here. Her name is Alia, and her aspiration is to become a patron. So she would actually be placed in the patron classroom here, and then I would place one of my pupil meeples onto, pupil meeples, that sounds funny. I would place one of my pupils onto Alia, and then she would be a student that I could potentially graduate in the future. I'll also mention that you can have as many students in a classroom as you would like, and then also there's going to be specific spots where you're going to have to pay duets in order to get specific students. So actually the one that I took has a 2 tile above it, which means that I would have to pay 2 duets in order to get Alia into this classroom. And then additionally, when you graduate a student into a politician, you are going to be placing that pupil onto a spot on some of these tracks. And whenever someone takes a card from that column that your pupil is in, that player is going to have to pay you 1 duet. So for any politician that is in that section that you want a card, you're going to have to pay a duet to whoever's politician that is. And also lastly, whenever someone takes a card from one of these rows, they do not replenish until the cleanup phase. Moving on to registering a hero student, which I will just grab one of these to show you guys. But this one here is a hero card. I will also show you some B-roll as well. But hero cards are going to require more books, but they will require any color pupil to be placed on them. So I could decide to register this hero student here. This is Maria Walanda Maramis, I believe. And she would be placed in any of the 3 different classrooms. Some of the heroes do have specific spots that they need to go, but this one here is a teacher symbol, so she would be able to be placed in any of the 3 classrooms. And then when you decide to graduate this student, she would be flipped over and she would become a teacher in whatever classroom you decided to place her in. And then also additionally, the hero cards are going to have some sort of ability. So this one here is, if this hero teaches politicians, students require 1 less blue book, but still at least 1 blue book. So the blue books are going to be the politician books. So yeah, that's like an ongoing ability that she will continue to give you throughout the game. And also whenever someone takes a hero student, the line here does replenish. So unlike these ones on the outside, the hero students do replenish. All right, and then the last action that you can take before we get into the main action, which is graduating students, is gathering books. So like I mentioned, when you are graduating students, they're going to require different types of books. So this one here is going to require a green book, so a patron book. And the hero students will require more books. Some of these require 2, some of them require 1, but you will need books in order to graduate students. So with this action, you are able to purchase books. So you can purchase up to 3 different books by paying 2 duets per book. So depending on which books you need for graduating your students, you're gonna take those books from the Balai Pustaka, I believe, and you're going to have them in your library. So when you do graduate your students, you will have those books that they require. So that is that. You can also alternatively trade in books. You can trade in 2 of one type of book for another type of book if you're looking for a specific one. And then also you can decide to trade with other players by paying either 1 duet for a book or paying 1 book for a duet. You can kind of exchange vice versa with that. So yes, that is the last minor action, but let's get on to the graduating. All right, so graduating, like I said, is probably the biggest action of all of them, and you are going to be wanting to do this as much as possible in the game because this is the aim of the game. You are trying to educate and graduate as many students as possible, and this is where you're going to be getting your reputation, you're going to be getting your victory points, all of those things. So basically, once you have all of the requirements in order to graduate a student, so for example, for Alia here, if I have the student card, if I have the pupil, the required book, which is the green book, and also a teacher, you do have to have a teacher in the classroom in order for the student to be educated. So once you have all of those things, the teacher, the student, the pupil, and the book, you are able to graduate the student. So once you do this, you would pay the required book. You would take the pupil meeple, and you would also take a graduation hat token, place the meeple on top, and then whatever occupation this student is graduating into is where you would place this. Well, I will get to in a second. All of them will have different things that are going to happen, but if you are graduating this student into a teacher, you would flip over to the teacher side, and then that would become a permanent teacher for you to educate students with there. And if that student is being graduated into a fighter or a politician or a patron, you would just take their card and place it off to the side of your board. You would gain 1 reputation if you graduated a regular student, and then for hero students, you would gain 2 reputation, and then if the hero student that you graduated had an instant benefit on them, then you would resolve that. You would then move the tracker up on the From Darkness to Light track, which this kind of represents external elements that work against the players. All players move the same tracker up, and if the tracker ever gets to the end, the game is immediately over and you would score then. But if that does not happen, it ends at the end of the 3rd round. So you're going to move that up, and whenever you hit some sort of icon, it is going to be something not so great that is going to happen to all players aside from the player that it's their turn and the player that most recently moved and triggered that icon. So that is the From Darkness to Light track. But let's get into each of the individual occupations and how those different graduations play out. So I will start with the teacher because I've already kind of explained that. But if you were graduating your student into a teacher, you would take the graduation hat with your pupil and you would place it here in the teacher area. You would then gain a book that matched the aspiration of that teacher. So for example, with Alia, like I was explaining before, you would gain 1 of the green books back into your library, and then she would become a permanent teacher in the patron's classroom. You would then gain the victory points on the back of the student card, which I believe they are only 1 victory point and 2 victory point student cards. And then possibly you'd get more for the hero cards. Yes, this one is 4 victory points. So you would gain the victory points on the back of that card once you flipped it. You would gain that matching book like I mentioned, and then that would be graduating a teacher. Moving on to graduating a fighter. So in this example, you would take that pupil in that graduation hat and you would place it onto 1 of the battle tokens on the Kartini map. And each of these battle tokens is going to have a certain reputation number. So here I start off the game with 2 reputations. So I would only be able to place my graduated student on 1 of the 2 reputation markers. So I could place my pupil there. I would gain this battle token here. There's going to be some loot on the back of this battle token, and I would be able to gain either 1 green book or 1 victory point, and then I could just place this off to the side. I would then be able to place a school into this coordinating or connected region to this battle token. So I would place a school into, this region here. I would be able to gain all of the pupils in this region, place it into my schoolyard, and then that would be graduating a fighter. Additionally, when you graduate a fighter, you would flip over 2 cards of the coordinating color on that coordinating colors track. Moving on to graduating a patron, which the patron section is right here. So I would, again, take my pupil with the graduation hat. I would place it into 1 of the 3 clusters, and I would be able to place it on any of the icons and get that coordinating reward. But you must be able to pay or equal the reputation for each of the clusters. So the first one, there's no reputation requirement. The second one is 3. The third one is 5. And additionally, you have to have at least 1 pupil in 1 cluster before you can move on to the next one. So for example, I maybe want 2 reputations. I'm going to place my pupil here in this patron cluster, and I would gain 2 reputation. You would then gain 1 victory point as well. And then at the end of the game, whoever has the most pupils in each of the different clusters here would gain 1 victory point at the end of the game. And then lastly, when you are graduating a politician, I think this is probably slightly the most difficult of the 4, but you would take, again, your little pupil on the graduation hat, and you would place it onto 1 of the spaces of these 6 different student tracks. So for example, I might want to either do the green or the yellow because you will have a chance to move your school, which I will get to in a second. So you'll want a school on that specific island. So because I have a school on the yellow island, I might decide I want to place my politician onto this spot here. I would gain this right here, which is 1 of the bonus tiles I would gain 1 victory point, which is depicted on the back of the tile, and then I would be able to place this bonus tile onto one of my 3 bonus tile sections, and this would, whenever, this gives me like an ongoing ability, whenever I register a hero student, I would gain 2 duets. So this is going to be an ongoing effect. It has a little infinity sign. So that would be my bonus token there. I would then move this 2 duets tile over to the section that I have my politician in. And then like I mentioned before, I would have the opportunity to move the school that is matching that region to a little square that they have in the middle of 2 regions. So I would be able to move my school here. So then on future turns, when I took the recruit pupils action, I would be able to take pupils from either or region on either side of the border that I moved my school to. And that is everything for the action phase and all of the different actions that players are going to continue to do until they choose to pass. Players would then move into the milestone round, where they would calculate and get victory points based off of that round's milestone card, which this could be anything from gaining 2 victory points per each of their graduated politicians, to each player gaining 2 victory points for each unique color of their graduated student cards. I will also add here that there are cooperative milestones, where when you play the cooperative game, all of the players work together to successfully get through these different milestones. So during the cleanup phase, a bunch of different things happen. You will lose 1 reputation for every pupil that you have in your schoolyard, as well as any students that are ungraduated, unfortunately. So you will want to make sure that you're using all of your pupils and graduating as many students before the end of the round. You will also have to discard any of your hired teachers back into those different piles. You will gain duets equal to your endowment, discard the rightmost hero and replenish, as well as discard all of the column A students from all 6 of these different rows, and then shift the rest of the cards down. And then additionally, you will repopulate all of the different regions on the Kartini map. So you would add up to as many as is printed on the map. If there are any other colors in that region, you would still add the amount that is on the map, and those different colored pupils would stay. And then you would move on to the next round. Players would play the second round, move on to the third round, players would play that through, and then at the end of the third round, the game would be over and endgame scoring would begin. So with endgame scoring, you're going to get victory points for a bunch of different things, including wherever you are on the reputation track, wherever you are on the endowment track. You will also gain 1 victory point per school that you have out on the map. You will gain victory points for any bonus tokens that you have. You will also gain victory points for all of the different colored framed graduated students that you have. So the more of the different colored students that you have, the more victory points that you get. I do believe the hero student cards are included in that as well. There's a little chart in the back of the rule book that shows you how many victory points you will get based off of how many of the different colored graduated students that you have. And then also there's going to be the Patreon little clusters here. Whoever has the most in each of the clusters will get 1 victory point. And then also, if you managed to achieve your objective on your Kartini letter, then you do gain 6 victory points for that. And that would be the game. Whatever player has the most victory points would win Kartini from Darkness to Light. And that is everything for the overview. All right, friends, so that is going to be everything for the preview for Kartini from Darkness to Light. Definitely go and check out the Kickstarter. I think the story behind this, the designer, Sherria, is a very talented and intelligent woman. I actually watched the interview that she did over on Heavy Cardboard. I will actually have the link to that interview down below if you guys want to go check that out. She is very intelligent and a very talented woman, and it's really, really cool to see some talented and amazing women here in the board game space. So definitely go and check out the game Kartini from Darkness to Light. Again, thank you so much to Ion Games for sponsoring today's video. And yeah, I love you guys so much. If you enjoyed, give this video a big thumbs up. Also hit that subscribe button if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. And I will see you guys in the next board game video. Bye, friends. I completely forgot to say, remember, you are somebody's reason to smile, and I will see you in the next board game video. Okay, bye, friends.